Hi, and welcome to another session of Career Change Hacks and these series of live streams. So, very warm welcome, which is this session is actually going to be the final live stream of 2021. So, going to make it a good one and looking forward to getting some new people online today and engagement and contribution is greatly welcomed. So, I'm Steve Preston. I'm known as the Career Catalyst. I'm a leading career coach, internationally acclaimed author, speaker, and creator of breakthrough online career and personal development courses, and broadcaster of Career Change Hacks Live. So, today our theme is it time to become your own boss? Is it time to become your own boss? And we're going to look at this whole aspect of becoming the architect of your own future. Now, the great thing is that this topic came about as a result of discussions on the previous Career Change Hacks live stream. And it's always great when people come on board and put forward their ideas, their suggestions. And at the end of the session today, I'll be looking for more for 2022. So, say welcome to Career Change Hacks Live. This is all about my quest to help professionals and executives to break free from career misery and do what you love. So, say hi or ask me a question, and we'll start the process from there. So, if you are online live now, then please do say hi and make yourself known. The challenge I still have is that I don't always see how many people are on live. And hi, Lynn, good to see you online again. It's not obvious to me how many people are online, and it's something I still need to work out why that is. But that's fine, because even if people don't join online in great numbers, then you can always pick up the recording afterwards. So I do know that there are a number of people who've accepted the invitation to the session today, and hopefully some of those will be on board. And there's one person in particular who I do hope is joining us, because I think there'd be a great example of some aspects that I want to cover today. So, Dave Pope, are you there? If so, make yourself known, please. And we'll see if anybody else is out there. So I'm just going to put up the topic again. So, say this week's topic is it time to become your own boss and the architect of your own future? Now, this is a big topic. It's a great topic, and there's much involved in terms of this. And the more interaction we can get, the more engagement, the more contribution, the better. I've got loads of notes prepared, but it's always good if other people can get involved, and then I facilitate the discussions. It's also a great networking opportunity for people as well, because like-minded people always attract, and it's an opportunity to increase your networks. So, in terms of this whole topic, is it time to become your own boss? If we rewind to last week's session and other sessions that we've had, it's something that seems to have become much more prevalent since the start of the pandemic. And what I mean by this, well, basically, it's very evident from all the media postings, Hi, Stephen. Thanks for joining. I know you've got a client to see, but I appreciate that. Um, but people have been rethinking their whole career and lives and what's important to them and why as a result of the pandemic, looking for more meaningful, fulfilling work and also arguably to take back control. And this is a key element. So many people have struggled through the pandemic because they felt or feel that their employer is still holding all the strings and stopping them from either doing what they really want to do in that company or organization, or stopping them working in the way they want in terms of the flexibility and different aspects of that. So let's look at some pros and cons of self-employment. And again, this is where it'd be great if we can get people to chip in. I mean, firstly, why do more people, well, in fact, let's look at it another way. Since the start of the pandemic, there's been an undoubted shift to people deciding to become their own boss and becoming self-employed, freelancers, contractors, all the different aspects of self-employment, because there are a multitude nowadays. It's not just about setting up a company of your own. There's so many different facets to being your own boss as such. And the reality is that, like most things, whether it works or not is down to mindset. And if you believe that mindset is 80% of success in any shape or form, then that's going to be fundamental. And it's back to one of my favorite quotes of all time, from Henry Ford: whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. So whether you think you can make it work, then it will almost certainly work. If you don't think you can, then it almost certainly won't, will it? Stephen's saying, right, I'm going to show this. The challenge I experience is I love my free time and being my own boss gives me this, but at the expense of a secure salary. Any thoughts? Yeah, great point, Stephen. And this is the dilemma that so many people have, isn't it? And one of the reasons that most people want to become their own boss is to take back that control. And so they do have more time, or they can use their time in the way that works best for them. So, in terms of your question, Stephen, at the expense of a secure salary, well, I think this is where you have to do a bit of reframing and think about this from a different perspective. And I'm sure, Stephen, you know all about reframing, doing the work you do. But the reality is, what is a secure salary nowadays? What is a secure salary? So many people during the pandemic decided to do more of the same and move from one employed role to another if they were fortunate enough to be successful in doing that, and only to find that the rug was pulled again in a few months' time as a result of the company or organization needing to make further reductions in staffing levels and or cost cutting in general. So I think this is one of the biggest mindset shifts, isn't it? What is a secure salary? Is it more secure that you're in control of it? So, in other words, you choose how you work, when you work, who you work with, where you work from, those aspects which are so important to many people, and certainly myself included, and I'm sure the same with yourself, Stephen. Or is it about having that regular monthly income from an employer where you know exactly how much is coming in each month? And it's horses for courses, isn't it? And many people obviously like that security of knowing exactly how much money is coming in each month. Whereas a lot of other people like the risk, like the challenge, like the freedom to choose, and also they don't view it as a big deal not having that secure salary. It's all a bit of an adventure. There's no right or wrong, is there? But it's more of a question of what are you prepared to trade? Now, I used to run regular seminars at City Business Library in London, all sorts of career related salaries, about career change, career transition following redundancy, portfolio careers, and so on. And all sorts of other seminars, similar seminars for professional associations. And most of my seminars, in most of my seminars, I included a bit about what are you prepared to trade. So your question, Stephen, I think comes back to this: what are you prepared to trade? And I think you have to, in your own mind or on a list, however you want to do this, you have to be absolutely sure what it is that you are prepared to trade. And obviously everyone is different. In my case, I'm very definitely prepared to trade a regular salary for the freedom and flexibility, and certainly most importantly, and how it was highlighted in terms of this event, is I'm really not prepared to work for other people's goals and dreams. As the sign behind me says, follow your dreams. Stephen's saying the challenge I have is 3 to 4 months over the summer where there's not much work. Make hay when the sun shines. Well, I think that's exactly right, Stephen. And the sort of typical approach to being your own boss or being self-employed, freelance, or whatever you want to call it, is absolutely that. And it's the fill your boots mentality. So when the going's good, do as much of it as you can. And again, everyone's agenda is different. What again has been interesting is that since the start of the pandemic in particular, I've seen a number of clients and other people I know, contacts on LinkedIn, who have shifted from very secure employed roles into self-employed roles, either consultancy roles, freelancing type roles, or a mixture of both. And it's all been about the working lifestyle. Now, those of you who know me and have seen any of my Career Change Hacks live streams before, or any of my other work, will almost certainly know that I talk about a blended working lifestyle, because it is almost impossible to achieve work-life balance. Whose work and life are totally imbalanced? I defy anybody. And most people don't want it that way anyway. Most people either want more work than life or the other way round. Lynn's saying, when identify when you have downtime. Not quite sure what you want to useful to plan your holidays. Absolutely. Now, I think that's another key part of being your own boss. And it's also another reason why people I know, and not just clients, but again, people I know generally, have moved away from typical employed roles into becoming their own bosses, because they are fed up with their company or organization dictating when they take their holidays. Why should it be that you can only take your holidays at certain times of the year? Now, I understand that if you're a teacher and you're working school terms and things like that, but for a lot of people, there's usually no reason why you can't take holidays when it suits you, obviously, providing that you agree this with your teams so that not everybody's off at the same time. And it's a common sense approach, isn't it? However, if you plan in your holidays at the start of the year, and goodness knows what's going to be possible in 2022, but even if you start from the premise that I'm going to be looking at a break here for a week and there for 2 weeks or whatever, then it gives the opportunity to work around that. And that's certainly what my wife and I do. We plan the year based around our chosen holiday times. Unfortunately, over the last 2 years, needless to say, that's not worked out in the way we'd hoped, but in the main, it has. Stephen saying, great time to write book or books. Yes, I seem to recall this is how the topic came up for this week in general. And if you are having downtime, yeah, make the most of it. And certainly everyone's different in terms of writing books. And I know Stephen's got a couple. I've got 3 internationally acclaimed books, which you probably see on the top of the bookshelf behind me. And I've got a couple of audio books as well. And I still have 2 potential books on the back burner, which I started to write a number of years ago, but I lost motivation, and they might become what I would potentially call hobby books. So when I do move more into retirement and focusing on purely doing work I want to do for myself and not actually having any fee paying clients, then maybe that's the time I will start focusing on those other book projects, because I'm going to have plenty of time to look at them in theory anyway. So back to Stephen's question. Saying time to develop my online programs. Yes, I still have further online programs I want to develop, especially around portfolio careers and working for the 3 P's of passion, pleasure, and profit, as I call it. But back to Stephen's point in terms of the being your own boss and the freedom it gives you at the expense of a secure salary. I think this is a lot to do with, are you prepared to take on the risk and reap the rewards? And the rewards for many people are arguably time. And one thing you can't replace is time. So if you want to have that time to do things that are important to you, either around your family, friends, whatever that might be, leisure pursuits, whatever, but you want that to become part of what I call the blended working lifestyle, then surely that becomes more important than security of salary. Obviously, that depends on your financial situation. So I think this is one of the this reverts back to one of the key basics of changing career in the first place, or any career transition. The importance of doing a survival budget, which is essentially a reevaluation of your finances and how much you need to earn, as opposed to how much you have earned or perceived you wanted to earn. Now, I mentioned a couple of people who I know who, since the start of the pandemic, have moved out of very well paid employed roles for favoring focusing on their own blended working lifestyle. And in both cases, they did their survival budget. They knew how much they needed to earn. But here's the thing. Now, isn't it interesting that when you do focus and you really get that laser focus on what you want as opposed to what you don't want, how you can attract things in a very definite way. And in both cases, the people I'm thinking of have actually achieved their desired earning. So they're earning enough for their desired income for the year. They did it in a matter of a couple of months or so. So it's quite remarkable what can be achieved with the right focus. Now, it's obviously not all one way. And I think it's important to focus on examples where it can go wrong. Who are the wrong people to become their own boss? Well, firstly, people who are totally risk averse, and obviously they're going to be constantly fearing the worst. People who don't want to be marketing and selling themselves. And a great case study in my Portfolio Careers book is a fascinating character called Chris J. Reed, who arguably is Mr. LinkedIn, probably knows more about LinkedIn than most people on the planet, and has written some great books around that. And his take is that you have to love what you do, but you also have to love putting in the work to make it happen. Absolutely true. You can't wave the magic wand. There is no holy grail. It involves a lot of hard work and determination. Sure, you can outsource stuff, and once you get to the point of having enough income, then you can start to outsource the stuff that either you don't enjoy, you're not good at, or it's just getting in the way of running your business, growing your business. And it took me a number of years before I had the confidence to be able to do that and realize that, you know what, some of this stuff is actually holding me back anyway. But everybody's different. One of the other key aspects of why people don't become their own boss, or are reluctant to become their own boss, is they're concerned about isolation. So if I start a business on my own, then I might feel totally isolated, and I like to have people around me, used to being in a team, and so on. However, again, I think the pandemic has probably kicked a lot of those fears into touch, because so many people have had to work from home anyway, and it's got them into a different mindset. And a lot of people are actually thinking, well, you know what, actually I like working from home and being on my own and being detached, as long as I've got other people around me. And one of the things I learned very early on is that you create your own team. And I'm sure that most people are on this live stream will be in that situation. You create your own team, and arguably your support people, shall we say, like IT, accountant, and various other people who are part of your overall business entity, if you like, they become part of your team. My web developer, for instance, always somebody I can bounce stuff off, and it works both ways, doesn't it? So you're not necessarily out there on your own. And also, one of the beauties of the likes of LinkedIn is how you do connect with like-minded people, and you share stuff, and so you find people through your LinkedIn networks who also become key people, part of your support network. And it may well be that you collaborate with some of these people. certainly over the years, I've had some fantastic collaborations with people that I first met over LinkedIn through discussions, through realizing we were like-minded, we had like-minded thinking on a particular topic, and we ended up working on a number of projects together, and it's been absolutely brilliant. So you don't have to be isolated and on your own. Peaks and troughs of business and income, yes, that clearly can be an issue. However, it's like everything. If you plan for that and you expect that, and equally depending on what work you do, you're probably going to start to realize when you get most of your income coming in, although it, who knows nowadays. The world is a crazy place, but in general, it might be possible to establish when you're likely to get more income than at other times. Then you can make sure that you build up enough cash reserves to cope with the downturns. And that's no different to most things in life. However, another option, of course, is that you build up multiple income streams, which is something we've talked about in the previous live stream, Career Change Hacks Live. If you want to spread the risk and not just be reliant on one income stream, then by having multiple income streams, then clearly you're going to be able to cover your peaks and troughs much more easily, let's say. And it might be that you have certain aspects in your portfolio that are seasonal, so that at certain times of the year you concentrate more on that particular activity as against other times of the year when you focus more so on a different type of activity. I mean, for instance, I have clients who do a mixture of interim management and gardening and general handyman type work. They could just do that completely because there's so much demand for it. However, they have other great skills which they want to use and they enjoy, and the interim management contracts certainly obviously pay considerably more than the gardening and DIY type stuff. But they like being out there in the outdoors, especially in the summer. So it's a good mix. Though another key aspect of why it might not work, and I don't want to focus on the negatives particularly. However, I think it's important that you are realistic and honest, both with yourself and your partner, wife, husband, partner, if you have one. Because what happens if you don't? What happens if you don't share that same vision, that same dream, that same goal? If you don't get them on board? Well, I'll tell you what happens or what could happen. And we saw this absolutely close to hand. A few years ago, we had a new neighbor moved in. An elderly couple had died, and the house was in an absolute mess, hadn't been worked on in years. However, good sized property, massive potential, and absolutely ideal for a builder to come in and reshape it, refurbish it into a fabulous family home. And sure enough, a young family moved in and they had a vision of what they wanted to achieve with the property, especially with the husband being a builder, and the wife seemed to be pretty sort of certain of the type of house she wanted to create. However, and this is really key, the husband was extremely unhappy in his job. He was getting more and more frustrated, arguably depressed, and losing faith in his employer. And it's back to values again. There was a clear clash of values. The company was going one way, he was going another. And so what did he do? He bailed out. And I remember having this conversation with him, and he said, "Steve, I know you do this stuff, and I'd appreciate your thoughts around this." And he shared his frustration, but it got to fever pitch, to boiling point, like the pressure cooker, and he just couldn't take any more, and he walked out. No other job to go to, but what he wanted to do was to set up his own building business and be his own boss. Well, fabulous, except for one thing. And guess what that one thing was? Yes, he hadn't got buy-in from his wife. And she was particularly concerned about what might happen if he did go self-employed and how that would impact on regular income, stuff we've already talked about, and also how it might impact on his time, back to time again, because you can't take back that time, can you? It's one thing you can't do. And he was determined to make sure that didn't happen. However, the reality, he'd taken on a humongous project with the house, and it needed a huge amount of work. Basically, it needed completely gutting and starting again. And so he started doing a few bits and pieces, and more so to the outside of the property. And I think he stuck a new bath in, but that was about as far as it got, because he became so busy with other clients who were constantly seeking his building services that he lost track of what was going on with their house build or rebuild. And it became also a robbing Peter to pay Paul. So he needed to earn enough in his own business to be able to pay for the huge amount of expense that was required to get the house up to their desired standard. So he ended up working pretty much 7 days a week on his building company, neglecting some of the key things that needed to be done on the house. Just a few bits here and there got done. And of course, you can guess what happened, can't you? His wife got very frustrated. They were living pretty much in a shell of a house that wasn't warm enough, and it needed all sorts of new work done quickly, sooner rather than later. Unfortunately, what happened was that it became a big rift, and it became a big problem, too much so that they ultimately split up. And the house was never completed at all. So this was a real lesson. But going back to the conversation I had with him at the outset, I always remember saying to him, look, great idea. However, you must get your wife on board. And I explained why. So if you don't get your wife on board, then it's going to be a constant battle, because her visions and dreams are going to be different to yours, and her priorities are going to be different to yours. So you've got to be able to have that buy-in to make it work, because rebuilding, refurbishing the house is clearly going to take an awful lot longer than you initially thought, because there's so much that's got to be done. So, this is a key warning for people. Being your own boss is not for everybody. However, it can be the greatest career change of all for many people. And again, if there's anybody on this call now, on this live stream, that wants to make a point about this, I'd love to hear from you. Dave, if you are on, then let's hear from you. But I loved your post on LinkedIn last week about how you said you were taking time out to spend some quality time with your son, I think it was, and how you felt you could do that because you felt it was owed to you. You'd put in enough hard work for it to be done. You are your own boss, in which case you can do it. And why not? And this is a key consideration. Okay, one of the other things that I think is really important that I'd like to cover is that most businesses evolve. Doesn't matter what you start out to do, things tend to evolve. There is a natural evolution process. And so it involves constant reinvention. Now, again, for some people, if you're like me, you love all that. And you can find creative ways to reinvent yourself and your business, and it keeps things fresh and it keeps you motivated and focused. However, for some people, that is again a bridge too far. People, there's a lot of people who don't like the constant marketing and looking for work. Well, again, there's ways you can overcome that. I've had a number of associates in my company team over the years who really struggle with this aspect. So they were happy just to do associate work, not just necessarily for my company, but for a number of other companies as well, so that they had enough strings to their bow so that got them the income that they wanted. Again, obviously, you can't guarantee that. But what it did mean was they didn't need to do the sales and marketing. It was being done by the companies they were choosing to associate with. They might have done indirect marketing because basically everyone's doing that without even necessarily realizing, just by social conversations and so on. But they didn't want to get involved in anything that involved really specific tactical sales and marketing activity, which can be very draining. And again, some people will outsource that. For a lot of people, they want to be doing all of that because it's then feels like they are getting their hands dirty, but in a way that works best for them. Two schools of thought around that one. Some people will never be able to become their own boss and make it work because they just don't have the self-discipline. And what do I mean by that? Well, basically, they don't focus enough. They don't give themselves enough time to plan, organize, and it's just literally everything up in the air and hoping that they can make it all work. It's a chance game. Well, if you leave everything to chance, it's really not going to happen in the way that you want it, is it? One key positive, again, or another key positive of being your own boss. I mean, how many people get totally frustrated when they're employed by the time it takes for their employer to make a decision about something, especially when you know that that particular thing, project, whatever it is, needs to happen in order to make the company better, to make a situation better, whatever. And yet they drag their heels, or they might go to a committee of all things, and then they drag their heels even more. So everything takes a huge amount of time to actually get decided, if it ever gets decided at all. It could be that the decision is not to make a decision. And how often have you seen that? And how frustrating does that become? So if you're your own boss, then you're making the decisions. It's your responsibility. Sure, you'll be doing work for other people, but ultimately you can be in control of that. And you are in control of whether you want to work for that particular company or person, organization, whatever it may be. Now, a lot of people say to me, "Oh, it's all very well for you to say that, Steve. You probably don't need the money or whatever." But if I put the clock back 20 years or so when I started my business, my first ever piece of self employed work was a small piece of consultancy for my old company, my old employer. And they took about 4 months from memory to pay me. And the only reason I got paid in the end was because I went to one of the senior directors and told them exactly what had happened and how I felt about it, and what a shabby way it was, not just to treat an ex employee, but also to treat a consultant, freelancer, whatever, the small businessman, if you like. And so I made a conscious decision at that time that I was never going to do any work for them again. Now, people thought I was crazy. So you've got you've got a potential income stream on tap here because they need your help much more than you need them. And you could basically probably earn a living from their work alone. Well, that's fine, but in my mind, ethics are important. And if a company or an organization has a policy, which they did, to delay payment to people for as long as possible and a minimum of 3 months before you got paid, then I'm sorry, then in the words of the Dragon's Den, I can see Stephen talking about Dragon's Den here, then I'm out. And that's exactly what I did. So I then started to focus on people and companies who were willing to pay to my terms and max 30 days. So you can make up the rules, and you will find that if people want you to do the work enough, they will follow your rules. Stephen's saying here, as a former Dragon's Den entrepreneur, I think you need that entrepreneur mindset. Well, maybe you want to say a bit more about that in the thread, Stephen, because I know you been on Dragon's Den, but that entrepreneur mindset is something that people can develop. I've heard so many people say, "I'm not an entrepreneur." Well, if you actually look what an entrepreneur is, I would say, and I appreciate other views on this, but my take on entrepreneur is somebody who is opportunistic and somebody who can spot opportunities and take advantage of them, or somebody who can create opportunities. And I actually call that crystallizing a need, because that need might not be recognized by a company or organization out there, or a group of people out there, client group, until you actually put it across in a way that suddenly they think, yes, I need some of this. So to me, being an entrepreneur is not this mysterious thing. It's actually can be quite simple, and I've been absolutely surprised and delighted about the number of people I've seen over the years, not just clients, but people I know in all walks of life, who have become the most unlikely entrepreneurs. They become their own bosses. And once they become their own boss and they've had this freedom now to express themselves in a way they've never done before, all of a sudden They saw things from a completely different perspective and they started to make things happen. Stephen saying agree. Good. So it doesn't have to be that entrepreneurs are born. I'm sure some people are in some respects. You can create that entrepreneur mindset by just learning some of the strategies. Not everyone's going to be another Richard Branson. Bless him. Not everyone wants to be another Richard Branson, maybe. But Richard Branson, in my mind, is infamous for a number of things, not least of being crazy in some respects, but he is the master of reinvention. He's changed his strategy, he's moved from one business to another, and he's constantly moved with the times and what is required in that particular era. Whether space travel really will be required, who knows? But being able to constantly reinvent yourself is a great skill. And it's surprising that it's not always the people you most expect who are the best at doing that. Often it's people who hadn't had thoughts about becoming their own boss and hadn't had thoughts about self-employment who actually see things from this new perspective, different lens, and are willing and able to constantly reinvent themselves. Stephen's saying the entrepreneur mindset can be developed. I totally agree. And obviously, you work with a career coach like myself, and it can be developed even more. But seriously, yes, it can be developed. And it's something, as with most things in life, if you follow a great role model, then see what they've done that works, then usually there's some form of strategy, as I have with my 6-step career navigation cycle process, which is a proven process to help people change or transition their careers. There is usually a process that works to help people to become more entrepreneurial, to think differently, and to make things happen. Stephen saying he's looking forward to a book writing session, considering we're both fantastic authors. Well, mate, we will have to schedule something in for the new year, I think, Stephen. And I also know somebody else who would be great to bring into that session. And the saying is, of course, everyone has a book inside of them. Whether you believe that or not, again, I think it's back to the Henry Ford quote: whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. If you want to become an author, if you think you can become an author, then you're likely to become one. If you don't think you can, then it's not likely to happen, is it? Growth mindset, absolutely. And let's just talk about this. For many people, they have a fixed mindset. They can only see in one way. They're not prepared to look outside of that, not prepared to see the bigger picture possibilities. The growth mindset is when you are completely open to new learning, new opportunities, and basically taking on board stuff that you can try and experiment and see where it goes. So having that growth mindset is definitely part of the entrepreneurial approach, but it's also that something that I've proven time and again with clients and people I know, that you can move from a fixed mindset, from somebody who's always been thinking in one way, been very tunnel vision, to actually having that growth mindset. It involves a lot of working on yourself, a lot of personal development work, but then you can literally see things from a new lens, different perspective, and have that entrepreneurial spirit. And I think spirit is the right word, because it is a way of thinking and a way of living. Any other thoughts on that? Be greatly appreciated. Right, I now want to share something else, which I think is also super, super important. A big lesson for a lot of people who want to become their own boss or set up a business. Please, please, please don't set up a business just because you are good at something. I'm going to say that again. It might sound contentious, but please don't set up a business just because you are good at something. So why am I saying this? Quite simply because just being good at something doesn't mean to say that you can make it work. What is equally, if not more important, is that you enjoy it, you're passionate about it, and you can put it across in a way that excites other people or creates intrigue, curiosity with other people. So they want to get involved with whatever it is that you do. And of course, the adage is that people buy people. So I'll give the example, for instance, and I'm not just picking on these professions, but I've seen it in particular: IT, HR, finance. People who have had good careers in those sectors, those industries, have set up something on their own and it hasn't worked. It's been a miserable failure, if there is such a thing, because you learn from every experience, don't you? But why didn't it work? Well, it didn't work because they might have been good at what they did, but they really weren't that excited about it. It wasn't they didn't have that fire in their belly. It wasn't helping them focus on doing what you love. And if you focus on doing what you love, then other people will get that energy and they will want to buy into that. I guarantee that. And it will show when people are running a business that they're really not that excited about. I remember having a client in IT who told me he'd fallen out of love with IT. Okay, fine. You know, you can change to pretty much anything with the right mindset, belief, and following proven positive strategies and taking right positive actions, if you like, which I mentioned time and time again. However, it wasn't that he'd fallen out of love with IT, full stop. He'd fallen out of love with certain aspects of IT. He was actually quite passionate about other things. And I've also met many people in HR who are the same. And the great news for them was they set up their own, they became their own bosses, they set up their own consultancy, and they focused on the areas of HR that they were passionate about, that they really enjoyed, with stuff that they wanted to do because they loved doing it. And of course, what happened? It worked, and they ran very successful businesses. So, big mistake to do work and become your own boss just because you like the thought of becoming your own boss, maybe, but doing something just because you're good at it. There's got to be so much more of it. So you really got to have that fire in your belly. And you've got to work hard at it, as I mentioned. You know, it's not just going to happen by accident rather than design. So, key other aspects nowadays, of course, of becoming your own boss. And again, the pandemic has heightened all of this. Well, let's face it, nowadays you can work from pretty much anywhere, can't you? And so, where you work is now a fundamental choice for so many people. Whether you work from home, whether you work from somewhere in a different country, whether you work remotely from a coffee shop, whatever, it's totally down to you. And this is where we come full circle, I think, back to the reasons why you might want to become your own boss and what I call becoming the architect of your own future. So it's all about choice. And as the saying goes, the choices we make define who we are. Life is all about choice. The choices we make define who we are and arguably our outcomes. So if you decide that your choice is that you want to become your own boss for all the right reasons, as I've mentioned, and you want to work when you want, how you want, with the type of people you want to work with, and you want to have that freedom and that control over your own destiny, then fantastic. As long as you realize the risk element, and as Stephen said earlier on, that negative aspect, if you like, of the secure, if it is secure income, as against the peaks and troughs of self-employment and becoming your own boss. But I think that since the pandemic, more and more people are now willing to take that risk. So again, I think you have to do your reevaluation. You have to look at your financial situation. You have to come to that joint decision if you have a partner, and you have to be open to change and constant evolution. But if you are somebody who literally is fed up working for other people's visions and dreams, and you want to follow your own dreams, and you are excited about what the possibilities of that might be, then there can be nothing greater than ending career misery, breaking free from career misery to do what you love. So I think we'll call it a day at that point. Thank you for those who have engaged today. If you're picking this up on the recording, then you can still add comments to the stream. And if you're interested in knowing more about what I do, then either connect with me on LinkedIn if you're not already connected. Check out my Steve Preston, the Career Catalyst website, or my courses website, which is my Winning Through Redundancy and Winning Through Career Changes online breakthrough online courses. Steve Preston, the Career Catalyst, courses.stevepreston, the careercatalyst.com. Otherwise, I wish you well with your quest. This is the last live stream of 2021, number 12. And I will be putting up details of when I'm going to start the live streams again for next year. I would value any input you can give me in terms of what you would like to see, whether you want to see things like more actual interviews with specific people, whether you want just me, and equally whether you feel these should continue to be weekly, maybe fortnightly, or even monthly live streams. I would value your views on that. So I'll leave you with those thoughts. I'd appreciate your feedback. And wherever you are in the world, have a great festive season and look forward to a healthy and happy, fulfilled 2022. Thank you.